Hi, everyone. Welcome to another fabulous episode of Deliberately Intentional with me, Remi Fagbohun. Today, our topic is a question that I'm going to shoot out to all of you guys. Who is the chief planning officer in your life or in your family? In my household, I am, well, let me just, not even just in my household, in life in general, I'm a planner. How did I become a planner? I guess by being first daughter just by being first daughter, mom not being in the picture after the age of 17, I've kind of been planning and organizing pretty much all my life. So of course, me now becoming this full-fledged adult that is now 50, I've been planning. First I was planning for myself, then I was planning for my siblings, and then after my siblings, then it was my husband and I, and then after my husband and I, then my son. And I've just gotten better at it. So yeah, that gives me this official title of Chief Planning Officer. But why is it important? Because whether you like it or not, we all have to have a plan. You either having a plan. For me, let me just start with where my planning comes in. All I've ever wanted was to be happy. Some people, it's they want to be successful. Some people, it's they want to be popular, famous. Other people, I mean, the list is just really long. You want to be popular, you want to be famous, you want to go viral, you want to, you know what I mean? Like I want to amass all of these companies. I want to save up a whole lot of money. I want to, buy so many properties, or I want to have a ton of kids, or a lot of girlfriends, or a lot of men. Everybody's got some type of plan. And then there's a handful of people too that actually have no plan. And those are the ones that's kind of how we discern between the people that are followers and the people that are leaders. Some people are going to lead, and some people are more comfortable following the lead of others. Now, bringing that back to how this is important to you guys is we sometimes don't think about which one we are. We get mad about things not going our way, but what were you doing, or what was the plan initially, and where did you go wrong? And are you learning the tips, the tricks that will help you get to your desired plan? So for me, I always use myself as an example, and we can talk about this further. But for myself, I've always looked at the fact that in this role of I want to be happy, take it down, like break it down. What is it going to take for me to be happy? Of course, you need finances. That was in there, but it was never a high priority for me, and I'll explain why. I'd seen so many people have money yet still be incredibly unhappy. Some were lonely, some were assholes, there's no other way to put it. And some just hadn't thought it all the way through. They thought about the money, but you forget that money is just paper. You can use it to buy things, but you can't use it to buy, and even if you are using it to buy people, you won't get loyalty with the money, with the people that you're buying. So it still feels kind of hollow and kind of empty. So my focus was never just money. But I realized that as I've always said, I'm a people person. So I love people. I knew, and I was also a lover girl. I said that so many times. Okay, so this is Remi. She likes people. She missed out on having a great family. She wants a family desperately. What does she like? Okay, she needs somebody that can keep up with her energy, right? So we're going into the chief planning and the dating category, and what was in my mind when I was trying to date. So I already know my personality is strong. I already know that I talk a mile a minute. I also know that I'm super friendly. I'm an extrovert. I'm ambitious. I'm all of these things. But at my core, I'm also a natural, caring person. And I've been that, again, remember, first girl. And I knew that my sisters would be a part of my life forever because we don't have a mom. So this is me knowing enough about myself. And I took what I knew about myself, and then I said, you know what, as I'm going through my day-to-day, I wasn't desperately seeking a guy. But of course, since I'm a lover girl, if I see someone that I like, I'm talking to it, and I'm taking everything I know about myself and I'm analyzing it with this person, and I'm testing it out. But I also knew there were some things I needed to match with he needed to have a strong personality too. Because again, and why did I say I needed this? Because I know enough about myself to know that if I don't have someone with a strong personality, I'm going to walk all over them. And that will bore me. I know that for a fact. If it doesn't even bore me, that person could also hate me at the end of the day. So I never wanted somebody that was weaker. I wanted someone that we could have conversations. We could, even argue, you know what I mean? Whereby we're not having fights, whereby you don't think that me having a conversation with you is being rude, or is me having an opinion is disrespectful. Someone that's actually going to hear me out. And that was something that I saw with my husband from the early part. Now, the reason why I'm bringing all of this up is I was planning from even at that point, that early in my life. A lot of us are not doing that. A lot of us are getting to the midpoint and then thinking like, oh, I should have done this. This person should be this. But you're asking somebody to become something that they naturally may not be. You want somebody to talk to you, but he's not used to having these types of communication. That was not what you were looking for initially. Your planning or your thoughts changed, and now you're trying to get somebody that's an introvert to become an extrovert. That's asking for a lot. Or you're asking somebody that's a traditional guy to become more modern, because now all of a sudden you want a modern person. Again, sometimes it's asking for a lot. You got to have at least a semblance of something. You can be a little light-skinned and say, hey, we can make your light skin a little shinier by giving you the right colors, but I can't turn a dark-skinned guy and make him light without having some disastrous effects. And that's what happens with all of us some of the time. We are not thinking it all the way through. But I kind of did. And so even by the time I had, let's say we start with just our relationship, I got that right. I'm not saying we didn't have some bumpy phases, but the bumps were not as bad because, remember, the foundation was strong, because what I was planning for was very clear. I was always thinking of my long-term. My long-term goal is always very clear to me. I want a nice cohesive unit because it's part of what I felt was important, my happiness. Now thinking about my husband, it's not just about me. I know what's going to make me happy, what's going to make him happy. Now that was a little trickier, because at the end of the day, that's why we had our separation. That's why we had, infidelity happen. But each of those things that happened, I learned from it. And that's what a lot of us, again, are not doing. We're not seeing the mistakes as learning. We're not seeing it as, okay, there was a misstep here. It doesn't mean that my whole idea was wrong. It just means that with this whole idea, just like if you're building a house or if you're starting a new job or starting a new business, you thought of most of the idea was good, but some bumps along the way can either steer you completely off course, or you can use it as a learning curve, patch it up, fix it up, and continue with your build. And that was what I did. I saw each of the things that happened and I used it as learning curves. And I learned what I needed to learn about him and even about myself, because there was a lot that I also didn't know. And that's where we come back to, childhood trauma, not seeing beautiful relationships, not seeing what that even looked like. I had to learn, and I was learning on the job. But his happiness was super important to both of us being happy together. You can't just talk about just yourself or think about just yourself. You have to plan for your happiness. You have to plan for the other person's happiness. And then if the two of you have kids, then you have to also plan for the happiness of your children too. Because what does it take for kids to be happy? Just for the parents to be happy. Bottom line. Once the parents are happy, that's all that child sees. It's not money. It's definitely your child definitely wants your time. But when we come back to this planning, when the two of you are present and you're feeding off of each other, literally it's your energy that transfers to your child. Everything that you've been able to conquer and deal with as an adult, you are basically preparing your child for, because what you've conquered, your child will also conquer and have none of those issues. The things that my child may have, the issues that may come up from my child will be things that I probably maybe didn't consider. But remember, as the chief planning officer of my house, I've thought of everything. I'm not claiming to be perfect, but if you're studying human behavior and everything that, let's say, a young man should need, or even as a toddler, if you're ahead of the game, you've literally been preparing them every step of the way. And that was me. So in my chief planning officer mode, I have literally been planning a lot of the different things that were going to happen in our lives. Now at 50, I'm planning for what's going to happen for the next 20 years of our lives. And a lot of it is fluid. Yes, I have a rough idea. Like I say, we're going to die together. But I am also doing things to make sure that is still we're living happily in the now. So are you a chief planning officer? Do you have one? believe it or not, why do I keep bringing us back to this? Because if you're not planning to be together, life will tear you guys apart. Everyone talks about the fact that marriage is not worth it, or they don't see the sense of getting married. Marriage is more for the guy than it is for the girl. Some people will say that most women that are out here nowadays, I don't need to get married. I just need to have a child. The problem with this saying you just want to have a child is you're forgetting that that child needs more than just one parent. If everybody else in the world has two parents and they're looking like this picture, how is your child supposed to look at their life? Are they going to feel like, you know what, I'm good? Or are they going to feel like they're lacking? So sometimes when we make these choices, like, okay, I just want a kid for myself, you need to think of everything. How is my child going to feel in school when they have one parent and they feel like they're lacking on the other side? Because believe it or not, just the way we humans are, what you see and what you have in front of you, it's not going to stop you from thinking and pining for what you've missed, which will be the other parent that's not there. So, and mind you, I'm no different from anybody else. When I was a teenager, I used to say that I wanted a sperm donor, that I did not want a relationship. I did not want a boyfriend. I did not want a husband. I wanted to get a sperm donor. That was me talking out of ignorance. And so when people come to me like, oh, I just want to have a kid, and I'm like, hey, you're not thinking this thing all the way through. You're not planning it all the way out. You're only thinking of yourself. I want a kid. But what does your kid need? What does a child need? Have you ever bothered to check, to plan, to think it all the way out? Somewhere along the line, people will go ahead with it and they was like, oh, they don't need anything. And then you wonder when the kid starts to act up, why the child is acting up. Because they feel like there's something off. If they have a parent that's alive and you guys are not talking, or the person does not acknowledge them or doesn't accept them, then they're constantly going to feel like I'm not enough. My dad does not accept me. My dad is not in my life. There must be something wrong with me. That's unfortunately how kids think. Now, mind you can offset all of that by having a therapist, but how many of us will honestly say that early on in life they thought about getting their child a therapist? Very, very few people. So how can we avoid all of this? By planning, thinking of what a child needs. And it's not just money. A lot of people make that mistake and think that, hey, to keep a child happy, just give them money, send them to the best school, let them travel, let them wear the best clothes. But that's not it. What's the same thing for a relationship? Okay, if we're having sex regularly, that's all that a relationship needs. Or we're in the same house. That is not it either. That is, oh, we are living in the same house. That's not enough to create a happy family. It's these planning tools that you need to cultivate and use within your relationship that is going to help you guys move from just living together to being this cohesive unit where everybody has goals and dreams and they're happy. Nobody, and I repeat, nobody leaves a happy place looking for more happiness. Where you're happy, you stay, you thrive, you grow. And all of that comes together with planning. It also comes together with intentionality, which I've said many times, but I realize that intentionality at times throws people, it kind of throws you guys off. So that's why I'm coming up with other terms and other ways to get you guys to see where I'm coming from. If you take anything away from today's episode, it's that planning is not something that is detrimental to your life. And it doesn't have to be fixed either. But you do need to have some kind of plan. It could go off by a year or 2 or 5, but you still need to at least have some type of plan for yourself. Because if you're not planning for yourself, then somebody's going to plan for you. And then you're going to look back and be like, well, how did I get here? You want to be in the driver's seat too. Or even if you're not a driver, you can at least be an active passenger in this journey, in this car that is leading towards the rest of your life. Thank you guys for joining me on today's episode of Deliberately Intentional. I want to hear in the comments whether you believe that being a chief planning officer or having a chief planning officer is essential to your life. Let me know. Bye, everyone. So I guess the music must be playing because I can't hear anything. I was like, did he catch me? Okay, how did that look?